Part 2. The Collision. It was almost 11:40 p.m., April 14th, 1912. The night was windless and hauntingly calm. The North Atlantic stretched in every direction, dark as ink, dotted with stars. On Tebrit's first officer, William Murdoch, kept watch. The ship's engines roared softly below, pushing her forward at full speed. Up in the crow's nest, lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee squinted into the darkness. The moonless night made the sea and sky blend into one shadow. Suddenly, Fleet spotted something. A black shape, towering and silent, directly ahead. He rang the bell 3 times and shouted into the phone. "Iceberg, right ahead." Murdoch reacted instantly, hard to starboard. He shouted to the helmsman. The great ship began to turn, but she was too close, too fast. A few seconds later, a low, grinding sound tore through the hull. Passengers felt a faint vibration, like the tearing of metal. On deck, some hardly noticed. In the boiler rooms, the crew watched in horror as seawater burst through the seams. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side, puncturing 6 of the ship's 16 watertight compartments. It was not a direct collision, but it was fatal. Within minutes, the bow began to fill with icy seawater. Part 3. Realization. Captain Smith rushed from his cabin to the bridge. "What have we struck?" he asked. "An iceberg, sir," Murdoch replied, pale-faced. Smith sent for Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer. The 2 men, along with officers, inspected the damage below decks. The sound of rushing water echoed through the lower corridors. Andrews examined the blueprints and spoke quietly, his voice heavy with certainty. "The ship will sink, Captain. She can stay afloat. Perhaps an hour, maybe 2, not more." Smith's face went white. The Titanic, the pride of mankind, was doomed. He ordered the lifeboats uncovered and sent distress signals through the wireless room. Phillips and Bride began tapping SOS, a new signal few had ever used before. "Calling for any ship nearby to help. Come at once. We have struck an iceberg, sinking fast." Far away, the ship Carpathia received the message, but she was nearly 58 miles distant. Even at full speed, she could not arrive for 4 hours. Part 4. Panic and courage at first. Passengers were calm. Most believed the ship was unsinkable. Many laughed, played cards, or stood on deck, watching the stars, unaware of the danger below. The crew moved quietly, telling people to put on lifebelts. Some refused. When the first lifeboats were lowered at 12:45 a.m., they were only half full. Women hesitated to leave their husbands behind. Men insisted the ship was safer. In first class, ladies in silk gowns gathered on the boat deck, shivering in the cold. Gentlemen smoked in silence, their faces pale under the lantern light. Benjamin Gochanaim, refusing a life jacket, said calmly, "We've dressed in our best dinar, prepared to go down like gentlemen." In second class, passengers prayed and sang hymns. In third class, Charles Ragned locked gates, and confusing passages delayed hundreds of families trying to reach the deck. Mothers clutched their children, calling for help. Below, the band led by Wallace Hartley began to play soft waltzes, then hymns like "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Their music floated across the freezing air, bringing a strange peace amid terror. Captain Smith moved among the lifeboats, giving quiet orders. Thomas Andrews helped passengers find jackets, refusing to save himself. The ship's officers did their duty, one by one. By 1:30 a.m., the Titanic's bow was deep in the sea. The tilt of the deck grew steeper. People began slipping. Water reached the grand staircase. The lights flickered but still burned bright, a ghostly glow over the dying ship. Part 5. The final moments. At 2 a.m., the last lifeboat was lowered. Fewer than 700 people had escaped. More than 1,500 remained on board. The sea was black, the air biting cold. The Titanic now stood at a terrible angle, her stern rising above the waves. The band played one last song. Some passengers jumped into the freezing water, a death sentence within minutes. Others clung to railings, praying. Captain Smith retreated to the bridge. Witnesses later said he stood silently, hands on the wheel, as water rushed in around him. He went down with his ship. Wireless operator Jack Phillips stayed at his post until the end, sending one final SOS. His last words were reported as, "Tell them, the Titanic is going down by the head. Goodbye." At 2:80 a.m., a thunderous roar split the air. The great ship's structure broke apart between the third and fourth funnels. The bow plunged under it. The stern rose high, silhouetted against the stars. Then a two slid beneath the sea. The unsinkable Titanic was gone. Part 6. The silence. The ocean was silent now. Hundreds of people floated in the freezing water, calling out weakly for help. Lifeboats drifted nearby, some afraid to return for fear of being swamped. The cries grew softer, ... then faded. At 4 a.m. lights appeared on the horizon. The RMS Carpathia, racing through ice fields to the rescue. Her captain, Arthur Rustrin, had ordered every hand on deck, every boiler fired to full speed. As dawn broke, the survivors were pulled aboard, shivering, stunned, silent. They looked back at the empty sea, where Titanic had been. Only bits of wreckage and floating ice remained. A woman asked a sailor quietly, "Where is the Titanic?" He answered softly, "Madam, she's gone." Part 7. Aftermath. When the Carpathia reached New York on April 18th, thousands waited at the dock in the rain. Families searched for loved ones. Lists of the saved and lost were read aloud. The world was stunned. The unsinkable ship had sunk on her very first voyage. Newspapers called it the Great Disaster at Sea. Investigations followed. It was found that lifeboats had been too few, warnings ignored, and speed maintained despite danger. The tragedy changed maritime law forever. Now every ship must have enough lifeboats for all, and maintain 24-hour radio watch, yet beyond laws and blame. The story of the Titanic became something deeper, a reminder of both the brilliance and the blindness of human pride. Part 8. The legacy over time. The Titanic became legend, a symbol of ambition, tragedy, and the fragility of life. In her story lived thousands of unseen heroes. The engineers who stayed below to keep the lights burning. The musicians who played until the end. The mothers who gave their places in lifeboats to their children. The wreck was discovered in 1985, 2 miles beneath the Atlantic. There she rests, silent, broken, but still majestic. Her nameplate's covered in rust and time. Even today, more than a century later, people stand in museums before her artifacts. A shoe, a letter, a piece of porcelain, and feel the echo of that night. The Titanic may have sunk, but her story never did. She remains what she always was. A dream built by man, tested by nature, and remembered by history. Epilogue. In the quiet of the deep Atlantic, the Titanic lies in eternal rest. The sea that claimed her now guards her gently. And perhaps, if one could listen closely in the dark, they might still hear faint music drifting through the water. The ghostly echo of nearer. My God, to thee, Tilda, there, end.